Well, I think, first of all, that the rise of euroscepticism is not only present in the UK at the moment, although it's the strongest movement, uh, probably. And it's founded, I think, in the sense that people don't understand Europe and feel left out of the picture and think it's some elitist bureaucratic decision making. So there is a big information problem. So to some point it is founded, but the information problem is not. I think it's also possible to resolve, and that's the task of politicians and of Europe itself as well.
Salamone, you're the president of the European Society here at the London School of Economics, and you're also American. Now we see there is a lot of debate going on currently about the role of the UK within the European Union. As it concerns how you observe the situation, is the UK on its way out of the European Union, or is this euroscepticism a process of bringing Europe forward actually?
Well, I mean, to my mind, I don't think that the UK will leave the EU. I think it's currently in the process of debate, which I think is a very healthy one to be having at this point in time, because it's critical that all the member states decide how they want the EU to proceed in the future. So I think that an agenda of reform is certainly something that we can all appreciate, and it's certainly clear to me that the UK is trying to lead that and spark a healthy debate.
As an American, you probably have also an outside view on how things in Europe are developing. Do you see that there is a tendency for the Eurozone to push ahead and the fringe countries that have refused deeper integration to be lagging behind? And if that is the case, would you think this is a good development?
Well, I definitely would agree that it does seem that there's a sort of division appearing within the EU as an outsider, sure, as an American, between the countries members of the Eurozone, which certainly are proceeding with more political integration and economic integration, as opposed to those remaining outside, including the UK. I'm sure from an American perspective, I think that we would really like to see an EU which remains united, despite the fact that some countries may want to have the euro and others don't. And I think it's important that all the member states, particularly the Eurozone member states, ensure that those remaining outside the Eurozone still feel that they could be a full part of the EU as much as they can.
The UK has substantial interest in the common market. In practical terms, withdrawing from the EU would be a very substantial step. Would you think that in practical terms this is realistic, or this is just a political game ahead of two referenda which the UK government has to manage well at the moment?
I think the dynamic is certainly very interesting at the moment in UK politics. I'm quite certain that if the UK were ever to leave the EU, it would very much want to be a part of the single market, and probably adopt an EFTA stance, for example, of Norway, or even Iceland. But I think obviously that would be to the detriment of the UK, because it would no longer have the influence of being able to negotiate from inside the EU. You just have to accept EU laws that was decided by the other member states. But no, I don't see there's any way that the UK could, in any economic terms, be able to completely leave the common market and return to the outside. I just don't think that would be possible.
And just the last one on the vision of the future. You agree to such a vision, a united Europe or a federal Europe, being very closely linked to the United States? So the transatlantic relationship is a key element that's not dissociable from European integration, probably.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, it's clear that in American politics, we're certainly focusing a lot more on the Pacific, on Asia, but Europe remains a key partner of the United States. And I certainly know that whatever the outcome of the UK referendum or possible referendum on EU membership or the Eurozone, that the US would really appreciate seeing Europe which remains united and remains strong. This is the best kind of partner that the US could hope to have.
Thank you very much. Timo Klein, you're a student here at the London School of Economics, doing your PhD in not too far from now. You come from the Netherlands.
That's correct.
And both in the UK and in the Netherlands, there is a certain euroscepticism which seems to be on the rise. When you compare the phenomenon in the UK and in the Netherlands, do you see rather parallels or differences?
Well, I think that there are a lot of similarities between euroscepticism in my country, Netherlands, as well as in the UK, as in other countries as well, in France or Austria, etc. And I think that's mainly rooted in the fact that politicians seem to be unable to convince the electorate of the importance of European integration, of completing European integration or improving it rather. And therefore, I think that this the possible referendum that's coming up in the UK is an important trigger for this debate, and I think that politicians should seize this opportunity or to take leadership in trying to convince the electorate of the importance of Europe, rather than just making decisions for them without their consent.
So to a certain extent, it's a communication issue,
Yeah.
not talking enough about the importances of how things could be going. The
Exactly.
Netherlands is also a very export-dependent country. Would you think it would be possible that the Netherlands withdrew from the EU? Is this something realistic, or?
I think in its most basic form, it's I think that the Eurosceptic movement in the Netherlands, in Netherlands, Geert Wilders with the Freedom Party, is a very important aspect of politics, because they force the establishment to take accountability for their actions vis-à-vis Europe and to convince the electorate of their importance. Where the risk lies is that politicians don't take leadership but start to follow the electorate. And that's what I think you also see in Britain at the moment with the Conservatives, that rather than trying to take leadership and convince the electorate of the importance of the UK, they're following the rise of Euroscepticism to try to convince voters from UKIP to go to the Conservatives. So there's the risks involved.
Okay. The London School of Economics is a very international place. There are students from all continents here together, working together on a daily basis. What is your experience of feeling European here? Do you feel Dutch in the UK, or do you also feel European among people from Asia or from Africa or from America? To what extent is Europe an actor in the future world, or to what extent is it still national states?
I think you notice that your nationality, especially in European context, still matters. You are known as being Dutch or German or Belgian, whatever. But you do, personally, I do feel a sort of connection with Europeans, especially when you talk about European issues or global issues. You do feel this connection. In that sense, I think there's also a bit of a downside with following higher education on this level, is that you are in such an secluded space with certain like-minded people to a certain degree, and then it's important to remember that this is not a representative of the entire electorate and the entire people, as it were.
So your prediction: will the UK withdraw from the EU or rather not?
I think it will be a very unwise decision, but it very much depends on whether especially Conservatives, will be able to show the political leadership to convince the electorate of staying into the UK.
Okay, thank you. Tindemans, you are a student here at the London School of Economics in a master degree. You come from Belgium, from Flanders. When you are studying here in the UK, you're probably also confronted with the stance of the UK towards European integration and the euroscepticism that is on the rise here in this country. Do you feel this euroscepticism is founded in its substance or sometimes exaggerated? I don't know if you would agree that there is some British peculiarity that is maybe making the debate here a bit different from, say, in Belgium.
Yes, well, there is a historical path of Euroscepticism in the UK from the beginning when they became a member. There's always been some reluctance to deeper integration, and the economic interests were always more important than the political will to integrate. But in that respect, I also think that the economic interests as they are now are much too important for the Brexit to be a viable option. The costs of withdrawing from the single market, I think, are simply too big to be possible.
Let's talk about Flanders, the part of Belgium where you come from. there was a moment not too far ago where there were big tendencies in Flanders also to say maybe we question the existing model of the nation state. Was this also Euroscepticism in a constructive form, basically saying we want to move forward and change things for the better, or was this something different?
I think in Belgium there is very little Euroscepticism. Probably the fact that all the institutions are in Brussels has something to do with it, even though Brussels for Belgians is not directly related to the EU, but it's the capital. And well, definitely the Flemish nationalists would use Europe as a vehicle to protect the regional interests, since there is a platform for it in Europe. But in the basis, I don't think it's a Eurosceptic movement. It's a nationalist Flemish movement, and it's a Belgian issue, I think, internally.
Looking forward, what is your vision of European integration, or how should Europe look like in 20 years from now? Should it be a federation? Should it be a free trade area? What would you suggest?
Well, I think I tend to be more in favor of the federation, but at the moment I feel that there is a bias towards the economic policies, and that many people are actually left out of the picture and are maybe even victims of the losers of the economic integration, and Europe doesn't provide any answer for them, or it's on a more shallow level. It's not hard law, but it are soft, like advice for social policy. And I think there is an opportunity there to get people on board, but as long as that's only left for national governments to resolve, and they can also use it against Europe, that they tie their hands in economic sense, and then the consequences are left for them, but they don't have the means because their budgets are constrained by the European rules. I think these tensions are, well, I don't know which way it's gonna go, but there could be some improvements in that respect.
So to a certain extent, growth, or the restoration of growth, is the key to overcome the actual crisis. That would probably be the focus. Put on more efforts to generate growth.
But European-wide growth, I think.